Megan said, here I am, Mukti Khaire. I am a faculty member here at the Harvard Business School, and I'm in the entrepreneurship unit where I focus primarily on research and teaching related to entrepreneurship in the creative/cultural industries, by which I mean a whole host of things, and I'll come to that in just a bit. I'm very excited to have this challenge here, held at the iLab here in Harvard, for a couple of reasons. One is obviously that this is exactly what I study, and it's exciting to have a whole bunch of data sets and data points here that I can look at more closely, help in a much more practical and much more tangible way. But I think the other thing is really that the iLab, as well as these challenges, are a wonderful place to just allow people to experiment with things that they might be wondering about, but might be much more worried to try out on a bigger scale outside. And the iLab gives you, and these challenges give you a way to actually think about them at a level that's sort of safe, right? And allows you some experimentation so that you can go forward later with it with much more gusto, with much more feedback and help that you have received throughout the process. So this is the first thing I want to stress about the challenge. Not just the Cultural Entrepreneurship Challenge, but all the other challenges that are conducted at the iLab as well, the President's Challenge and the other Dean's Challenge, Dean's Challenge for health and life sciences, right? That this is meant to be this is not meant to be a competition just in the sense of competition. It's a competition because we really do want to surface good ideas and bring them to the top, but also but what it is really meant to do is to help you take sort of what might be a seed of an idea, take it forward and test it out. See what people say, see what judges have to say about it. Last year, because I sort of run the challenge and being faculty feel responsible for the educational component of the challenge, even if a team wasn't a finalist, because a finalist gets mentorship, et cetera, even if a team wasn't a finalist, I had office hours where I would be willing to give the team, the judges feedback and sort of suggestions for what can be done to either improve the chances of getting this to fruition, getting the idea to fruition, or what can be done to tweak the idea itself so that it can be a much more powerful and sustainable idea. So that's really a very important component of the challenge, and I want you to keep that in mind, thinking about what you would learn out of this, not just about this as a business plan competition purely, right? It is much more about other things, and the mentorship aspect, I think, really emphasizes that. So anyway, before we start, the people who were not at the kickoff, I'm not trying to call you out here, but just let's see how many of you have an idea of what cultural entrepreneurship is or what it might be related to. Can I see a show of hands? Fabulous. We have a volunteer. What do you think cultural entrepreneurship is about? No one's ever going to raise their hand ever again in this workshop, but
probably slightly different than yours.
Okay.
I think it is ethnic culture.
Okay.
Japanese culture, Nepalese, Mexican, and so on.
So culture in the sense, anthropological sense that it's being used. So what would the entrepreneurship angle be? What would the entrepreneurship angle be?
In terms
of cultural entrepreneurship?
Well, in the United States, it's often driven by cultural entrepreneurs. These are people you see the sidewalks, the vendors. Some of them might have a store. Very few have catalogs, and it's troublesome for them. And to break out in the United States, most of them are first or second generation Americans. They're doing everything from buying the products from the homeland
Yeah.
to emptying the trash.
Okay.
And at least I believe there's one business model that can able partnering up with them and making things better for.
Okay. You had your hand raised as well, didn't you? No? Oh, it's such an easy cop-out. Such an easy cop-out. But I wanted to talk about this, and this is one of the reasons I do this very fundamental. I get sort of the more boring part of the workshop, because the next two workshops are going to be so much more fun. I can say this myself right now, because they are about how and who is a cultural entrepreneur. But I'm going to cover ground that will bring us all on the same page, so that when you apply, when you send in an application, I really want you to maximize your chances of making it through to the first round and going to the finalists round, so because you have all this information. So I'm going to cover so what we are looking for through this challenge, so that a definition of how we think of cultural entrepreneurship in the context of this challenge will be coming up in just a minute, and then challenge logistics and what we are looking for in the application, which is slightly more precise than what we are looking for in the challenge. So the challenge is about cultural entrepreneurship, surprise, surprise. But what that means when we are looking at applications is that it should be a plan for an organization. Please note that please do note the word organization. It should not, what I don't want is for you to come up with an idea that's about simple sort of, we're going to do a grant for an artist, and that's cultural entrepreneurship. No, it has to sort of come about as an organization, because the idea behind that is that organizations are some of the most stable forms of effort that can be maintained in a sustainable way, and the effort can be replicated. It's not a one-off thing that we want you to be doing. So it has to propose a plan for an organization that combines artistic and entrepreneurial aspects in order to, again, enhance the arts and or address societal issues. So organization is important. The combination of artistic and organizational or entrepreneurial effort is really important, and the objective of that organization to enhance the arts, to address societal issues, and or address societal issues is important. So what do we mean exactly by cultural entrepreneurship? We do have a focus on the arts, and in terms of sort of, when we say culture, we are looking much more at the sort of artifacts of culture that people look at, which is one of these things, right? So and this is a list taken from the United Nations definition of arts and what constitutes arts. So there's a bunch of things here. I think this is a pretty comprehensive list of the things that we would consider when looking at the proposals, when judging them. If any of you has thought of some category here that is not not up here, please let me know. We can absolutely discuss. This is not the final list. We might have missed out something either broadly or precisely, and it doesn't mean that we will absolutely not consider it. But this is a fairly extensive list. So it is an organization that deals with, like I said, a fairly broad but a fairly specific set of artistic objects, artistic categories, and this can be an organization that may or may not be started by someone who thinks of themselves as an artist, and hence the artistic and entrepreneurial spirit part of the definition. So you do not have to think of yourself as an artist to start this. You do not have to be an artist to start this. You do not have to be considered an artist by others to start this. What you have to have is a passion for these artistic categories, a willingness to come up with an idea for an organization that would somehow be, if you're not an artist, be about art, be for artists, and most importantly, be an organization that's viable. The going concern aspect of it is really important. Be financially sustainable, viable, offer and deal with sort of either infrastructure and support for the arts and artistic categories that we have talked about, or somehow improve the impact on society that arts improve or enhance the impact on society that arts and artists can have. So think about it from all of these angles, but most importantly, think about how can the organization be made sustainable, and how can it be an organization and not just a one-off effort at trying to do one of these things. So as I said, these are the categories we are looking at, and as examples, there are examples of these organizations. People have started a lot of them. Some of these, the Sundance Institute, of course, these are alphabetically listed. Don't try to read anything into the order of the organizations. It's not as though one is better than the other or any such thing, but these are just examples. Some of them you may not think of as necessarily entrepreneurial because they're like more than 20 years old, so the Sundance Institute being an example, but they obviously A, were at one time entrepreneurial, B, or new, and B, what they have done, each and every one of them, is they have met those criteria that we've been talking about. They are sustainable organizations that have combined a sort of passion for art and understanding that art has a huge impact on society, and brought all of that together to be able to improve the infrastructure for arts in society and enhance their impact on society. I would urge you and encourage you to go to these websites, just check out what they do, and you would get a sense of what we think is an excellent example of the kind of organizations that we are looking for. All of them would be great places to sort of get examples and role models. Where do we see the most potential for impact? And there are 4 areas. These are the 4 areas in the challenge. These are, again, very broad categories, as you will see, and they are potential areas. You don't have to limit yourself to these. Again, just like with the arts, the list of artistic categories, if you have a sense that we've missed out some potential area for impact, and you have an idea for something that doesn't quite fit into each of these 4 areas, please don't think that this means that you're sort of excluded from the challenge. We would like to think we're know-it-alls, but it's possible we're not. Possible is what I said. And so please do talk with Megan, talk with me, anyone else that can provide you advice if you have questions about whether the idea you have, whether it fits into a particular category or not, and whether it just is something completely different, and how you can think about it. So the first area of impact we're looking at is funding and audiences. And you will notice that some of these areas of impact are sort of framed in terms of problems, right? That the arts, we sort of feel, are facing a crisis of funding and dwindling audiences, and so is there a way for an organization to come about and create a way to improve this situation? Yes, they have been framed as problems, but I would like for all of you to think of them not just as this problem to solve, but have a sense of how this problem can be actually converted into an opportunity. And I know that sounds sort of hokey, motivational speech type thing, but really think about it that way, because that's the entrepreneurial angle. So trying to resolve a problem that exists in this ecosystem of arts and culture by just thinking of it as a problem would lead you to perhaps a one-off kind of solution. Thinking of it as an opportunity for setting up an organization that can keep addressing this issue and sort of take away this root cause of this would actually get you to a point where this is an organization or a plan worthy of submitting to the challenge. So that's the main reason I want you to have this frame shift in how you think about these areas that have been mentioned of the impact. So funding and audiences, I mean, you can open the newspaper any day and there'll be some information about how it's become harder and harder for art organizations to get funding, for artists to make a living. Is this quite hopeless? I think not. There are ways to do this, and some of the organizations that I mentioned earlier have done it. I mean, and Kickstarter is a good example, but Kickstarter does one side of it. Is there scope for other types of organizations doing this? Absolutely. And can one of you be the ones to come up with an idea for this? Absolutely, again. So think about funding and audiences as one area of impact. The other big challenge that we see nowadays is the fact that, especially that the technological changes have affected the creative and the cultural parts of our society quite a bit. And a simple example is the rise of the internet as a medium, and everybody knows the example of what that has done to the music industry and to musicians in general. Initially not great for the music industry, but it turns out actually really quite nice for musicians if they can harness it in a particular way. But if they are your typical musician, sort of the stereotype of a musician practicing forever every day and not really understanding how to harness the advantages that the internet can offer them, can you think of a way that can actually bring these, and this is again just an example, can you think of a way that can actually bring these together? And can you do that in a sustainable way? That's the second area of impact. Artist services and support is in some ways a catch-all term, because obviously finding them an audience, finding artists and audience is also a great service for artists and a great way to support them. But this is slightly different from that, in that think about a musician. You would think I actually know anything about music, the amount of times I say musician. But think about a musician and the things he or she needs, right? And think about the fact that those things cost money, be it instruments, be it practice time, whatever it is. Is there a way to provide access to artists for that? And that's the sort of slightly complementary way to think about artist services and support, which is separate from the funding and audiences side, all of which ultimately we're trying to support the arts and artists, but these are slightly different ways. The other point here, which I think is important, is this sort of notion for creating more collaboration across artistic disciplines and boundaries. And I think that's one of those things where you really get the most creative work being done, but it's just impossible for people from various disciplines to meet each other. So creating an iLab-like thing somehow that can get artistic disciplines together is actually a wonderful way to support and provide service to the arts. And then this is finally the sort of, if you think about why do we even care about art and artists? It's because ultimately they can make us think about things in a different way. They can open our eyes to a new vision of the world. They can help They can help create communities around a piece of art. There's tremendous potential to the stuff that to what artists can do in society, and can we create an organization that can enhance the opportunities for artists to be able to do that, for artists to be able to engage in a more educational aspects of society, to be engaged in other community development. So one of the finalists last year worked on sort of civic engagement projects where artists would engage with society to create projects that would help inform them about simple mundane things such as what are their rights in a developing country where a lot of people do not, perhaps are not able to read? Are there ways to create engaging displays that can help these segments of society understand what civic engagement means, what society can offer to them? This is a great way, this is a great example of how an organization can actually take care of that. So those are the challenge areas. Again, let me reiterate, these are suggestions, these are sort of not necessarily watertight or completely final categories. If you have something that you don't know where it quite fits, ask or check, sort of think about it as an other category, but make sure that it has this connection of the artistic and entrepreneurial. This is sort of coming to the challenge logistics, right? These are the dates. These are all on the website, not just the slides, but all the dates themselves are on the website of the Deans Cultural Entrepreneurship Challenge. But just coming up next week is something that is a workshop that's not specific to the Cultural Entrepreneurship Challenge, and definitely try and make it. This is a pitch and a team formation event. This is for all the challenges. Coming up on November 18th is the How workshop, where we have people discussing the ecosystem of the arts, and which what I want to come out of that challenge is that you get a sense of how these ecosystems are organized, so that you get ideas for where organizational efforts would have the most impact in the ecosystems. In February, because basically things sort of cool down over winter, not surprisingly, we do this workshop on who, where we will actually get a couple of people who have been cultural entrepreneurs to talk about their experiences, to talk about what prompted them to do this, what were the challenges they faced, what are the things that they have seen works for this notion of cultural enterprise. And then February 9th is the first round proposals are due, and so on and so forth. But the workshops dates are here. Now, what are we looking for in terms of the submission, the actual packet that you hand in when you make an application? And the reason we say this up front and make clear right now is so that as you think about what you want to submit, you also start thinking about all the data that you would need in order to maximize your chances to be a finalist. So you do need a description of the idea, and what the impact that you expect it will have will be. You want to present your sort of best face to the judges, and so make sure you explain what progress you have made so far. And this includes sort of coming up with a team. There might be some people who have raised money already for something through something else. It might be a grant, et cetera, et cetera. Have you already tested it? Had customers sign up? That's another aspect of progress. You do want to again describe the product or service of what you're doing. But then I think these two are really critical. The next 2 points really help the judges understand why you think this is going to work, why you think that if you do X, it's going to have this Y impact on the arts or artists or on society. what is the theory behind this? What are your hypotheses about how the art world works, and I'm again using art very broadly here. Don't think just of art as in on a canvas, and why we should believe you when you say that you want to do this, which means and that's going to have this impact. Provide supporting data and evidence, and this comes up later as well, show us how you will gather the data and evidence if you had time, mentorship, money, et cetera, all of which you would get if you became a finalist, and which is related to the last point, which is give us a description of how you will use the prize money. Because what we want is a thoughtful plan that actually understands that the money is not just a check handed out to you to have some fun and blow it up on fancy presentations, but it's something that you're going to use to test out this idea, to find the data and evidence to show us that this would actually work for the final demo day. So these are things that you want to really keep in mind while keeping the submissions to 10 pages, including any exhibits, et cetera, et cetera. Remember, the judges are reading at least 8 to 10 of these submissions. And if you really want them to read everything carefully, you do not want this to be extremely verbose and difficult to get through. Motivate them to read this in its entirety. What happens next in the judging process is fairly straightforward. You'll all put in applications. There will be a finalist pool selected out of it. This is up to 6 of the teams of all those that submit, and then the winner and the runners-up are 1 to 4. And there will be the sort of big prize winner and 2 to 3 runners-up in here. Actually, 1 to 3, I guess. Runners-up. What are the judging metrics? I say this with some trepidation that I lay these out. I don't want you to write a proposal to these metrics, right? But I do want you to keep in mind what we will be judging about so that you can make sure that you have presented the best case possible for what you're trying to do. And we're basically going to we want to judge you on whether this is an organizational idea. Again, that word organization. Again, we don't want just a one-off sort of, we're going to start a grant for artists kind of idea, unless you have a way to make that grant-making process sustainable in some other way that it'll go on for the next few years. Think about it as us wanting to, as the organizations, the idea behind the challenge being that we want more and more organizations that will deliver artists from a sort of perpetual paranoia about where their next rent check is going to come from, deliver artists from this sort of hamster wheel of fundraising and networking constantly, et cetera, providing them with some way of doing this in a more sustainable way, right? So think about it as that, and that's the organizational part. We do want to see ideas that have the potential for impact, the potential for real impact, and what we mean by that is to see a novel idea, something original, something new, not something that duplicates. So if you want to start a Kickstarter just for, Danish furniture designers, you better tell me why this is going to be so completely different and not the same as Kickstarter. It's going to be hard. That's a high bar. There's a high bar for showing me that a crowdfunding site for Danish furniture designers is going to do something that Kickstarter doesn't already do. And so think about having an original idea that sort of looks at solving, and I use the word problem here again, even though I said get out of the problem and mode and think about it as an opportunity, but think about it as sort of thinking about all those issues that we talked about in terms of the things facing the arts. And so, but it has to be an innovative approach to solving that issue. And then if an organization has to be sustainable, it it should at some point sort of be able to broaden its sphere of influence and have an impact beyond the initial few individuals, entities, and stakeholders that it actually affects. And so there should be some sense of how you're going to scale the venture and move forward. Again, just simple logistics. The team does have to have at least one Harvard student, degree-seeking, matriculated, in a key role. Megan and all the others here are eagle-eyed. They can see when somebody has been just tacked on to a team. Megan is nodding her head very ominously. Yes, exactly. They can see when somebody has been just tacked on for the sake of eligibility criteria. So please, please make sure you don't get disqualified just for that. The team has to look like it constitutes people who have domain expertise, who have skills in the area that they're aiming to work in, and have commitment. Now you'll ask, how do we measure commitment? We measure commitment. We can gauge it. How do we measure domain expertise? You have a place where you can talk about why you are the right person to start this venture, to do this plan. And so we will know if you have domain expertise and commitment. And the most important thing is, again, the idea is to have a sustainable organization. A sustainable organization doesn't have people of just one kind. Have people in the team with complementary skills and a set of abilities that would be necessary to take the venture to the next level. So if we see a team full of this is business school language, full of poets, or a team full of quants, it's a problem. We need to see why all quants together can somehow do something that needs domain expertise about, say, music or art or writing, whatever it is. So let us see that there is, even if there isn't a single person who can do everything, as a team, the whole team can come together to do multiple different things. And you have to describe ways in which, let's say you realize that the team doesn't fulfill all the skills required, but you have a way of actually getting that. You're going to outsource the programming. Yes, you don't have a programmer in the team right now, you're going to outsource the programming, that's fine. Or you already have outsourced the programming, that's fine. You have a way to get the additional necessary resources. So keep that in mind. You have to show us a plan for what you want to do. What are the things that you're going to do? Remember the slide I showed you about showing us data and evidence, right, for supporting your idea. So show us what activities you would do in order to get those data, and what you will be doing to execute and executing upon to create a financially sustainable venture, and tell us, as I said before, how you will use either the prize money or even the mentorship money in order to get the data, even if you're not able to get them right now. So this is a plan. We understand that. This is a proposal. And so that you may not have everything in place physically out there, but show us that you have thought about it. Show us that you have figured out a way to get it if you win this. That's the kind of person we want to put into the finalist pool. This is the person that will use the person or team that will use that money and the mentorship in exactly the way that we hope it will get used, and create a venture that's worthy of demo day and of being a winner, so that we can actually go ahead and have an impact on this cultural ecosystem. And I'm open for questions, and there is a mic there.
I was just curious on how much the award is, or whatever one would win.
Megan.
So each of the finalist teams will receive $5,000, and the grand prize is $50,000, and that will be split between all of the winners. So the grand prize winner and the runners-up. So there's not an exact amount for each person in that. It's really dependent upon the needs of the teams and the judges on that day.
Yep. And each of the finalists, so in terms of intangible awards, each of the finalists gets matched with an appropriate mentor. So so for example, last year one of the runners-up was this idea for creating 3D versions of fine art so that the visually impaired could experience them. Their mentor was somebody at the MFA who deals basically with disability and access issues at the museum, so that she could guide them in the right way in terms of what the museum is looking for through these kinds of services. So that's sort of an intangible award that the finalists get, which is an access to the right people who can then connect them to other people so that even if you're not one of the final winners, you still have made the connections that were necessary to take the venture forward. Anything else? Ask away. I just did such a good job with explaining everything.
Someone's got it.
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you. Have most of the winners been products or services, or both?
So define products. So in terms of physical products, this was I'm talking about the finalists now, because right now the winners is a very different thing, right? Because the winners can come out of what work they put in the finalist period. But in terms of the finalists, there was only one physical product, which was this sort of 3D version of fine art pieces. But there were others that were apps, if you want to think of those as products. And Musee, the winner, is an app for sort of not exactly crowdfunding in the Kickstarter sense, but post hoc crowdfunding, so that it's after the artwork has been created. And so it was a combination. It was whereas the civic engagement project that I mentioned in the developing country, that was clearly sort of a service. It was a set of activities to bring artists together much more in contact with society.
Thank you.
Sure. And we don't have a preference, by the way. It can be a product, it can be a service. We don't have a dogma saying this better be a product or a service. What it needs to be is meet all these other criteria. It's a plan, remember. Somebody else had a, yes?
Are we allowed to participate in other, for example, business school resources,
Yes.
such as like the incubator at the
Yes.
iLab, so we can...
Yes. So remember the point about description of any progress made, team, money raised, etc. There are definitely teams that may have raised money through some sort of fellowship, through an incubator, etc. Yeah.
What about, can we enter the regular venture competition with the idea as well?
Yeah. Yeah. Those are, you want to, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so the whole idea is to maximize as many resources as humanly possible.
Yeah.
So the cultural entrepreneurship programming, it's one set of programming. The iLab, if you haven't seen our calendar, we have at least 2, if not 3 or 4 workshops a week, which teach you about every matter of entrepreneurship, really detailed things like marketing, finding an audience, finding your customers, creating culture, mission, and values. So you should really be tapping into those as well to learn if you don't know them yet, but really get a breadth of what entrepreneurship is all about. And these cultural entrepreneurship resources are to then deepen your understanding of the cultural realm as well. Other resources, other business plan competitions, iLab resources like our experts in residence who are here providing office hours, legal office hours that are here at the iLab. We really urge you to take those on, sign up for hours, test your idea with as many people as possible, get as much feedback. In the iLab, we want this to be your resource to do that. So definitely, and apply for other competitions for sure as well.
Including other Dean's Challenge. And I mean, if you can find an idea that is somehow works for the Cultural Entrepreneurship Challenge as well as the Health and Life Sciences Challenge, go right ahead and do it. That's perfectly fine.
Do Do you have any guidance in terms of going kind of a breadth versus depth issue? So are people primarily working for a very specific kind of smaller group, then it's kind of scalable, or have people proposed larger ventures that may satisfy many of the possible areas of impact that you described?
So again, we don't have an ex ante expectation of we prefer depth versus breadth or any such thing. What we would want is to see this matching, right? If you're going to give us an idea that is very, very broad, that covers, let's say, funding and audiences as well as societal impact for the literary arts as well as the culinary arts as well as any other art, then we better be able to see that the team looks like it can pull it off, right? One person trying to do this, we know this is not going to work. So think of it also from our point of view. What are we trying to do? We are trying to create cultural entrepreneurs. We are trying to create a sense that this is possible, that this is a valuable thing that we as an educational institution need to support, right? So are we going to make somebody a finalist just because they sound so ambitious, but it's like clear that they're not going to be able to pull it off? I don't think so, right? But are we going to make somebody a finalist and give them the mentorship and the resources they might need to succeed when it looks like all they really need is that little push to take them to the next level? Absolutely, right? So keep that in mind as you write that proposal, as you think about what it is that you want to do and how you will position it. Let that matching be very clear between what it is that you want to do and what it is that it seems like you would be able to do.